Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Voice Like a Lion podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pemberton, and today we are getting the great privilege to learn from someone that has been in the industry for a very long time, who has so many books. I don't even know if I could read them all in a lifetime. But for those of you, you probably already know who this is. This is Bob Burg. Bob, for 30 years, he's helped companies, sales leaders, and their teams to more effectively communicate their value, sell at higher prices with less resistance, which is really good because that's a whole thing we could talk about all day. Grow their businesses based on endless referrals. He is best known for the game changing books, The Go Giver and Endless Referrals. His books have sold over 2 million copies. And I had to throw this in there because I saw it. But he is also an unapologetic animal fanatic. And he was on the board of directors of Furry Friends Adoption and Clinic in his town of Juniper, Florida. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Stephen. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. The only reason I wanted to throw that last piece in, he may make an appearance, but right behind my left
He's
shoulder,
he's
I
right
have
here.
yes, I have an English bulldog who he may or
Oh,
may not make a verbal appearance with his
I
loud snoring.
I
So
hope
that's
he
why I put
does.
that in
I
there.
hope he does. That's absolutely fine. And I've got my little
So,
guy just to the right of me, and he's sleeping right now, so I'm not sure if
oh,
he's
do
gonna make
you?
an appearance or not.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Bob, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. This is our very first time meeting.
Yeah.
So, I just want to thank you for stepping out on a limb and coming on the show because you had no idea
Oh,
what you're getting yourself into. Had you just said yes, and here you are. So, I'm very thankful for that. I
thank you.
wanted to get started and just I would love for you to tell us about the story behind the Go Giver because I'd love the title of that, but what was the story
Thank
behind
you.
it?
Well, I had years before that, back in the mid '90s. I had a book. My first book out was called "Endless Referrals," and the subtitle
Hmm.
was "Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales." And it was basically a how-to guide, in a sense, for entrepreneurs, salespeople, business owners who they knew they had a great product or service. They were proud of it. They knew it brought wonderful value to the marketplace, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable going out into their local area and building the kinds of relationships with people that would lead to people wanting to do business with them directly and or refer them to others. So it was really a how to create relationships book is what
Hmm.
it really was. Uh, and it did very well, but it was a how-to book, and since I'd been in sales, I'd always loved reading I've read plenty of how-to books, and I learn a lot from them, but I'd always really enjoyed reading parables. Parables are
Hmm.
stories, right? And I think we all know that stories tend to connect on an even deeper level than how-to books. Um, I think they make almost a heart connection, and I knew whenever I'd read parables, I felt a connection with the author, with the characters, we in and with the story itself. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take the basic premise of endless referrals, which was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. I've been saying that for 35 years now, and that was the
No.
message of that book, and it also makes its way into the Go Giver too. But I thought, it'd be great to take that premise and turn it into a story, but I'm not a story writer. I can tell a story from stage when it's something that actually really happened, and that's one thing. That's a whole different thing from writing a parable. So fortunately, in the early 2000s, I met John David Mann. He was the editor in chief of a magazine I was writing for, writing a monthly column for, and he was so fantastic. And even back then, he had a great reputation as a fantastic writer, storyteller, and so forth. So I brought the idea to him about this story and I had it very sketchily drawn out. I mean, it wasn't really anything. Uh, and asked him if he wanted to do it with me. So, he was busy at the time, but he and his fiance at the time, now wife Anna, they were visiting her mom in on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and I live in the East Coast of
Hmm.
Florida. So one day they just took a 4-hour drive over. We had about a 3-hour dinner, discussed the book, and he called me about 3 weeks later, and he said, Anna and I have discussed it. I think we got something here. Let's do this thing. That's really how it happened. And now we got turned down over the course of the next year. We got turned after we it took about 3 months to write the story. John was the lead writer and storyteller. Believe me, he's the guy who made this come alive. But when our agent shopped it around, we got turned down by I think 24 New York publishing houses before the
Wow.
25th one said yes, and they turned out to be a great publishing partner.
Wow. What? So that's really fascinating from a multitude of different areas because I think I find myself in a very similar spot when it comes to telling stories. I can tell a story from the stage or something that's really happened in my life, but when it comes to writing stories, that's something different.
Oh yeah.
Why do you think it is that those 24 publishing companies they said no, but why did that one say yes?
Well, I mean, the different publishers had different reasons. So some of them were, that's just not the kind of book we want to do now. We're not doing any more parables. So, a couple of them said we don't think there's a market anymore for parables.
Mm,
Uh, some just didn't think we had the right platform for it. Whatever, and now some of them also had some good suggestions in terms of what to do with the story too. So John and I we would not let our egos get in the way. We listened to everything. We didn't accept everything because not
yes.
every idea is it, but we looked at what we thought were good ideas, and we revamped it a little bit. Basically, a big thing was that I needed to really get on the ball and put together much more of a marketing plan than what we had and so finally, well, Penguin Random House, but they're one of their business divisions, business book divisions portfolio took us on. Why they did, I think the Adrian Zackheim just saw something in it. He saw that there was something in this book that was ready, that the market was ready for, and that could be successful. And so grateful to him for having that kind of confidence in us. But I got to tell you, the whole team at Portfolio were just fantastic to work with. I mean, they were so supportive. They had so much wisdom, and uh, you know, it, and not to diss any publishers and so forth, but different people have different experience with different publishers. I,
Yeah.
I had a other publisher that they're good people, but it's certainly Portfolio really went above and beyond to make sure that the environment for success was created for this book.
That's fantastic. I love to hear that. I actually love to hear that story of where you're just talking about going in with those 24 other publishing houses and you're listening. You're willing to put your ego to the side and learn. I have a friend of mine that he just started a software as a service company, and over the span of a year, he went from 0 users to 30,000 users, and he's
Good for
taken on
him.
venture capital. I know it's been incredible, but his story is very similar in that way, where he said he's just talked to so many venture capitalists and angel investors, and he said it's the journey, right? It's not
Mhm.
about that one person who says yes. Yes, it is that. And it's those aspects of I'm getting to learn from each one of them. Hey, we didn't like this
That's
about your
key.
product. Hey, your marketing needs to be better here. Hey, this is something else that you could implement over here. Maybe you can monetize this. And he said that that was really what played into him being able to
Mhm.
get the funding that he had. So I love to hear that that's that same kind of parallel, even in book writing.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's different, but it's the same, right?
Yeah.
The basic principles and the basic universal laws apply across the board, whether it's SaaS or trying to get a book published or selling computers or selling witchamahoozies. It's still the same thing. And what we need to do, and what I loved about what he did, is he created what we call that benevolent context for his success. So, at one point, somebody was going to tell him yes because he was learning and growing and doing the things he had to do. And I take it he's probably a young guy.
Yeah.
And so I really admire that because, John and I, even 14 years ago when this came, we're still, kind of long in the tooth. We were still older. So we'd been through the ego stage and the not wanting to listen and the this and that. So it was probably easier for us to do that. But for him to be a young up and comer and being willing to say, okay, there may be something here. I need to consider everything. I really admire that.
And that's all. Yes, I admire that about him. I also have a client that I mean, his story is just so incredible that I just love being able to work with him
Mhm.
because he was addicted to drugs and he dropped out of high
Mhm.
school and he was really a menace to society. And he admits that. And then one day he said, "What if I wasn't?" Like he actually asked himself this
Ooh,
question. What he said, "What if I wasn't? What if I was actually the reason why the community succeeded?" And
wow,
so that's a powerful question, and everything changed.
powerful.
He got clean. He ended up starting a business, and he did that same exact thing. I heard the story from him. He went and worked for 40 different companies in the industry that he's in now, in the where he has his business. He would work with them and say, "Hey, what else can I learn? What else can I learn? What else can I learn? How can I add value to you? What can I do?" And he said that he would work with them until they wouldn't let him do anything more. And once they started telling him that he couldn't learn anymore, he couldn't do anymore, and he knew that there was more, he would quit and go somewhere else and do the same thing. And that's how he learned. And then he went and started his company. And he is young. I mean, he is 25 years old. And I'm just so proud
Good
of
for
him for
him.
that, because that is such, just being able to have that mindset, especially in business, put your ego to the side, be willing to learn, be willing to hear what people are saying. Because most of the time, people aren't attacking you, they're actually giving you their unbiased opinion. And
Yeah.
that when you get that, you can do a couple things with it. You can either throw it in the trash and say they're completely wrong, which sometimes they are wrong,
Hmm.
or you can just hear maybe they were wrong 90% of it. But what is that
Right.
10% that I feel like they
Ah,
are right?
yeah. You're wise beyond words, Stephen, and you're hanging out with people who are too. So it's no wonder that you're,
Yes.
that you're on your way as well. So that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And so I would love if you would share with the audience and just share with me, honestly, because I haven't had the chance to read The Go Giver. What is the main concept of The Go Giver? I believe I can pick up on it based on the title, but I would love for everyone else to be able to get some understanding behind it.
Yeah, the basic idea of it, the basic premise is simply that shifting your focus, and this is really where it all begins. It's shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing exceptional, immense value to others, understanding
Well,
that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's also the most financially profitable way as well, and not for any kind of way out there woo woo magical mystical reasons, nothing like that at all. It actually is very rational, it's very logical.
mhm.
When you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and instead place it on serving others, discovering what they need, what they want, what they desire, when you can move that focus off of yourself and onto helping them solve their problems and challenges, when you can make it about moving them closer to happiness, the fact is people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell the world about you. They want to be your personal walking ambassadors. And so that's really, that's really the gist of the story.
That's so good, because a walking ambassador, that's different than just a paying customer, because
Mhm.
because then it plays into your other book with endless referrals. How do you get endless referrals? Is you have walking ambassadors, where now
Right.
you don't have to have just really great marketing all the time to get people in, because if you're not actually focused on serving the client, similarly what you're saying, they're not going to be walking ambassadors. So you're always going to have to pump money
Exactly.
into this marketing system to get more people in, which
Mhm.
if you just spend more time focused on the customer, focused on who are they, how is my product really helping them, is my service really helping them, and then ask. And I've seen some business owners that they are afraid to ask the clients they have, hey, what worked for you, hey, what didn't work for you, because
Oh,
they just said, well, they paid me, they got the results they were
mm,
looking for. It's like, but what if you just asked them some questions, and it was, hey, I'm not gonna turn off your website that I built for you. It's like, but what didn't work? Oh, those things didn't work. Fantastic, thank you so much for letting me know. And then that way you can make it better for the next person, better for the next person.
exactly.
But I
Exactly.
love that about I love that you're talking about that. So I would love to know, and for everyone listening, what are you doing now? Like, what is it? Because I know the Go Giver, and you have the book, and you have that book, and you have endless referrals. But what is Bob doing now? Like, how are you impacting the world now besides the books?
Well, my business partner, Kathy Tagenel, and I have an online mentorship community called the Go Giver Success Alliance,
Wow.
which is a lot of fun. Yeah. And we also hold um, uh, live mastermind events. We call them Go Giver Beyond the Mastermind retreats. We hold them right here in Jupiter, Florida, which are very small. It's 8 people. at the most, and then there's two guest master coaches, which are usually one of our certified Go Giver speakers, because we have a licensing program for speakers, and then Kathy and myself, and so it's a 2 day very intensive strategy session, if you will. And so we really enjoy those. I'm not speaking on the road anymore. I've pretty much taken myself off the road, but I still do keynotes and so forth virtually, and so forth. So that's what we're doing. And as long as as long as I'm having fun with it, I'll be 66 later this month. So as long as I'm having fun with it, I'm going to keep going, and I'm still having a lot of fun with it.
Wow. Well, happy early birthday. My mom is almost that age now, so
Oh,
happy
how
early
cool!
birthday.
Happy birthday to her.
I know. So I love the mastermind aspect. I love that just even from the bio. Because most of the time, I'm sure you've had this experience when you get on a podcast, instead of me going back into your 30 years, which I may touch on that here in a minute, but I started where you're at because I think that that's fascinating to be able to hear about your successes. Yes, of course, but also what are you doing? How has that evolved? So you took a book, you took these concepts, and now you're saying, how can we go deeper with these 8 people?
Mhm.
Why 8? Why not 10?
Yeah, well, when we first started doing it, it was 12, and what we
Mm,
found was that, there wasn't to us quite as much time for everybody. What happens is within these 2 days, every person gets 1 hour, right? So it's not like you're coming to a mastermind and get 10 minutes, right? It's like everybody
yeah,
gets an hour, right? Where all the focus is on them. Now, again, these are already successful people, so this is not something for so much for the person who's just starting out. These are
right.
expensive programs, and it's for people who are, they've done very well, and they want to take their business to the next level, right? And so there's a lot of strategizing with this person, um, a lot of helping them to maybe see blind spots that they may not have been able to see, and it's usually people from different um, types of work, right? And so we can sometimes see things that that person can't, because they're in that profession, right? So they may not. It's like the fisher
Yeah.
doesn't realize they live in water, right? Sometimes we can't see when we're too involved in it, and so everybody gets an hour, and so that takes a certain amount of time. Um, but what happens also is, even when it's not that person's hour, during the rest of the when everybody else gets their hour and everybody's else is giving suggestions, there's still so much to pick up, right? So there's a lot there. But what we found is, any more than 8 people, it got to be a little too rushed,
Mm,
and there wasn't that kind of comfort level that people had that time and that you were able to. So yeah, so the biggest thing with something like this is to make the experience so superb, that people come away with this knowing that they got a lot more out of it than what they paid. And so yeah, so eight is what Kathy and I eventually came up with.
and I think that that's a perfect number, even from what I've experienced. We have small groups at our house usually every Wednesday, and our small group went from small to really big. I mean, we had 6 people, and that's a small group. Then we went to 43 people. That's a lot more people. And that was in less than a year. So with
Wow,
that
good for
massive
you.
explosion of
Yeah,
people, it hasn't been as intimate. So
yeah,
that's why I asked that
that will
question,
happen.
because I'm generally interested in what the numbers were telling you, and the number that mattered the most to you was these people getting attention. Like that's the
Yeah,
concept of even the book, The Go Giver. It's not
it's
because
true.
honestly, you could sit there and say, well, I could have 50 people show up to the event, pay me the same prices, and we're making really good money. But you said, but how can I make this so intimate and so good that they go out and they be an ambassador for this event? And I love that you didn't just write this book, like you are living this book, and you're living that in your everyday life and how you do business. It's
Thank you.
really amazing, and I appreciate that.
That's very kind. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, with your decades of experience helping people with sales and helping people with their companies in different areas, what have you seen to be some of the like key denominators and the people who have either ended up becoming successful or have just washed out and quit?
Well, so we have John and I have 5 laws, what we call the laws of stratospheric success in the book. And these 5 laws are not things we made up. This is from our years of study and living and making mistakes and having some victories and so forth. And what we took are the basic 5 principles that successful people have always applied. from the time there have been market economies. Now, they didn't always know they were applying these laws. Sometimes it was very intuitive,
Yeah.
and they may never have known, and other times they may have, and we name them what we name them. But the laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. And the law
Mhm.
of value is really, and this is what successful people do, they give much more in value than what they take in payment. Now, this sounds counterintuitive. It's not more in value than I take in payment. It sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. No, not at all. It's understanding that an exchange of value means different things to different people. So, for example, price is a dollar figure, right?
Yep.
Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. What is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, that somebody finds of such use, of such worth, of such value, that they're willing to pay a certain amount of money for it and be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. Very quick example is the person you hire, the accountant you hire to do your taxes. Maybe she charges you $1,000 fee or price, but what value does she provide in return? She saves you $5,000 in taxes. She saves you countless hours of time. She provides you and your family with the security and peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. She gave you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000. So you feel great about it, but so does she, because to her, it was worth her time, energy, and so forth, to do this for the $1,000. That's what she charges, and that's a very healthy fee. So both people, in fact, in any free market-based exchange, when I say free market, I simply mean no one's forced to do business with
Yep.
anyone else. In any free market-based exchange, there should be two profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because both of them come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. But the key to this happening goes back to focus. This didn't happen because she was focused on her fee. She was focused on the value she was providing you. The money she received, the fee, was simply the reward, the result. This is why John and I say that money is simply an echo of value, right? It's the thunder to values lightning, really just meaning that the value must be the focus. The value you provide that person must come first. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided. Your friend with the software as a service. Obviously, people are paying him a fee for using that, but I guarantee they're getting a lot more value from it than what they're paying. How do I know that? Because they wouldn't do business with them if they weren't, you know. And
Yeah.
so that, yeah, so I often say, when I used to speak to sales organizations, I'd say nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right?
Mhm.
They're not going to buy from you because you need the money or even because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they're going to be better off by doing so than by not doing so, which is the only reason why anyone should buy. So that's really what the law of value is about, and that's what successful people like your friend do. They give more in value than what they take in payment while making a very healthy profit. Law number two is the law of compensation. This says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So, where law number one is about giving more in value than you take in payment, law number two is how many people's lives you touch with the value you provide. So, it's not just the value, which is very important, it's how many lives do you impact? How many
Mhm.
clients does your friend have in order to make the kind of money that he's making? Well, he's got a whole lot of them. He's providing exceptional value to the lives of a whole lot of people, and that's where the major income comes. Law number three is the law of influence. This says your influence is dependent upon your, excuse me, how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Now, again, place other people's interests first. How are you going to be more influential? Well, let's look at that. And by the way, so when we say, placing other people's interests first, that doesn't mean you're anybody's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not. It simply means that, as Joe learned from several of the mentors in the story, and as you and I were talking about earlier, the golden rule of business is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, here's the thing: There's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you in others than by genuinely moving from that I focus to that focus on others. Or as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, it's making your win all about the other person's win.
Wow.
Now, law number 4 is the law of authenticity. And this says this says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And in this part of the story, the mentor, Deborah, shared that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are indeed very
Hmm.
important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core.
Hmm.
But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. More importantly, they feel comfortable with you. Most importantly, they feel safe with you because they know who they're getting. Now, one thing, Stephen, if I may, is I I think the term authenticity has almost become hijacked to mean something that it isn't. And this seems to be more probably because of social media. I'm not sure, but it seems like these days the word authenticity has come to mean no boundaries. Just say
Mm.
whatever you want, do whatever you
Yeah.
want. It doesn't matter because you're being authentic. So it's okay. And I disagree with that. I think that's a terrible way to look at authenticity. This would be like the person who says, "Well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me." When really what that means is this person has an authentic problem
Yes.
they need to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves. I believe authenticity can be defined very simply, and that is acting congruently with your values. And I think as long as you do that, now you're being authentic. And then the last one that successful people do, they have to be able to receive, right? And that's the law
Mm.
of receptivity. The key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Simply means you breathe out, you also have to breathe in,
Breathe in.
right? Breathe out, which is giving, breathe in, receiving. Uh, the world around us provides us with horrible anti-prosperity messages. It's almost sickening,
Yeah.
right? And so we've got to understand that despite those false messages, giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in
Hmm.
they work in tandem,
Hmm.
right? You give, you receive. You give, you receive. You breathe out, you breathe in. But the giving comes first. That's a law of life. It's a universal law. It's a law of nature, economic nature, human nature, physical nature. Right? We plant before we harvest. We sow before we reap. We give before we receive. But we've got to be able to, once we have mastered that giving of value, we've got to be able to allow ourselves to receive with gratitude.
Mm. Wow. That is so powerful. There was so much wisdom packed into that like 6 minutes
Oh,
that
thank
if you're
you.
listening, just go back and re-listen to like the last 6 minutes because honestly, even that last part, I don't want to skip over any of them. I know we're coming towards the end of our time, but that last one is probably for me what I found to be the most important because I've learned how to be authentically me. I've learned how to add value, but the receiving part was hard for me for
Sure.
a while, and I had to learn it's okay.
Hmm.
Like it's okay to receive. You've added value out into the world, and because growing up, usually there's always a story, right? There's a story that's tied to
Sure.
why you don't. When I
Hmm.
was a child, I was told that we don't take handouts from anyone. And so I would always see receiving as taking a handout, even
Ah,
if it was a payment. And it's like,
right.
but so then I didn't know how to receive. So it took a year of hardcore having to ask and then being okay with receiving for me to be okay
Good
with
for
receiving.
you. But the fact that you did that says so much about you. So it just speaks so highly of you that you were able to. I mean, you did that in a sense through pure discipline, which is the toughest way to do it. I'm a big believer that what we need to do and what I suggest to people is to make a study of prosperity,
Yeah,
because the garbage anti-prosperity stuff comes at us all the
all the
time, and
time.
from just about everywhere. So study people like Randy Gage, like David Nagel, like the late Bob Proctor, people like Ellen Rogan out of Chicago. Um, uh, uh, I'm trying to think of the person's name I'm thinking of, Sharon Lecter out of California, and there's so many great people who Ken Honda from out of Japan, so many
Yeah,
people who just write beautifully and do blogs and videos and teachings on prosperity, and it's 99% of what they talk about is just how to get past those mental blocks, those
yeah,
emotional blocks that keep you from receiving all the goodness that you deserve, right?
yeah. Oh man, that's so good, Bob. Thank you so much for joining me
Oh,
today. How can the people listening to you? I don't want to end the conversation, but I know you've got some prior obligations. How can the people that are listening connect with you? How can they partake in what you have going on?
yeah, the best place to go is Burg, BURG.com, and they can just look through and find a whole bunch of resources that they'd like, but they can also, while they're there, they can sign up for excuse me, my daily impact email. I send them Monday through Friday, and so those are always a fun way to start the day.
Awesome, Bob. Thank you so much for being here, and to everyone listening, I'll see you on the next episode.